All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're looking at a totally new way to think about learning. It's a structured, even measurable approach to curiosity, and it's built specifically for this new age of working alongside AI. So, let's start with the big question, the one that really drives this whole thing. What if curiosity wasn't just, this random spark? What if it was something we could actually engineer? Something we could design, measure, and even teach over and over again. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at the curiosity problem. Then, we'll meet the curiosity engineer and check out their recipe for curiosity. After that, we'll see it all in action. And finally, figure out how to make all this curiosity actually count. All right, first up, the curiosity problem. You might be asking, why do we even need a new way to learn? Okay, so here's the core of it. Our education system, for the most part, is really, really good at one thing, getting you to remember the right answer for the test. But the world we're moving into, especially with AI as a partner, it needs a totally different skill set. It's not about finding the right answer anymore. It's about finding the right question. It's about getting comfortable with messy, open-ended problems and learning how to experiment safely. There's a huge gap there, and that's exactly what this new blueprint is meant to fix. And that brings us to the hero of our story today. Let's meet the curiosity engineer. This is a brand new kind of role, and it's designed to be the bridge that closes that gap between just knowing stuff and actually creating something new. So, what exactly is a curiosity engineer? Well, their whole mission is to plan, lead, and measure that entire journey, from a simple question all the way to a real-world innovation. The key word here is process. It's about taking that creative spark of curiosity and turning it into something systematic, something you can actually repeat. And this isn't just theory. This role creates actual, tangible things. First, they make a curiosity brief. That's where they lay out the initial question and what they think might happen. Then comes the experiment protocol, which is basically the game plan, right? It details the AI tools, the data, everything. And finally, the result report. This is where they look at what happened and make the big call. Do we pivot and try something new, or do we keep going? It's a really clear workflow. Okay, so how do they actually do all this? Let's pop the hood and look at the engine driving this whole thing. It's a really practical recipe, a kind of algorithm, called the Curiosity Transition Graph, or CTG for short. Now we're going to start with the easy version, CTG Lite. Just think of this as the perfect on-ramp. It's a simple entry point that anyone can use, whether you're in a classroom or on a team at work, to start putting this engineered curiosity into practice. It really just breaks down into 3 simple but super powerful steps. Step 1 is question and flip. So you find something that kind of surprises you that doesn't quite make sense. Then you flip it on its head and ask, what if this is completely backward? Step 2 is connect and build. You ask, where else have I seen this pattern? Maybe in a totally different field. Then, and this is the really cool part, you build a tiny 10-minute micro test with just one key performance indicator. And the last step, step 3, is check and share. This is critical. Before you do anything, you figure out the safety and ethics rules. Then you share what you learned. And look, for when you're ready to do a real deep dive, this simple 3-step process actually expands into a much more detailed 7-stage algorithm. It takes you all the way from identifying an initial friction point to a final reflect stage. It's perfect for those bigger, more complex projects. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great in theory, but what does it actually look like? So let's get into the fun part and see how this framework comes to life in the real world with some honestly mind-blowing tools and examples. So check this out. This framework has led to some incredible tools. On one hand, you've got something called AccelLearn. It actually uses an EEG headset to give you real-time feedback on your brain activity to help you learn a new skill way faster. Then, on the other hand, you have a tool called Phantom. This one looks at the heart rates of a whole group of people and turns that data into music to help everyone feel more connected and in sync. So you've got a tool for individual mastery and another for group synchrony. Just amazing. And it gets even cooler, because this method isn't just for people, it actually works with nature too. So let's trace an idea from start to finish with probably my favorite example, the bioelectric garden. Okay, so remember that first step, friction? Here's the problem they started with. How can you get a garden to tell you what it needs, like right now, without having to stick a bunch of expensive, complicated sensors all over it? And here comes that magic invert step, the big flip. What if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if the garden is already making its own signal and its own power? right there in the dirt, from all the microbes living in the soil. And that one simple flip led them straight to this incredible prototype, a 1 square meter garden bed that literally powers itself. It uses its own bioelectricity to tell you about its health, to tell you when it needs water, no batteries, no wires, no expensive sensors needed. The garden becomes the sensor. And just to show you how flexible this thinking is, here's another quick one. They took that old idea, that some animals can smell disease, and they flipped it. They built a prototype system that doesn't just treat odor as a smell, but as a readable code, like a piece of information. Okay, so we've seen the cool ideas, but the real power here, the thing that makes this a process and not just a brainstorm, is that you have to be able to measure it. So let's talk about how you actually make curiosity count. Let's talk KPIs. And this is what makes it so powerful. It gives you a way to measure things that are normally, kind of fuzzy. So instead of just guessing if someone's learning faster, you can measure it with something called the Learning Efficiency Index, or LEI. Instead of having a long debate about whether an idea is good, you can use the Synthesis Integration Score, the SIS, which is a formal way to rate it. You can even measure how in sync a group is, using their shared biology, with a metric they call row sync. It's about making the invisible visible. And the goal for all of this is to move fast. They have this target called prototype closure time, and it's less than 30 minutes. Think about that. That's from the moment you have that little spark of an idea to having a fully defined, measurable first test in under half an hour. That's incredibly agile. Now, holding this entire framework together is a really strong ethical foundation. This isn't an afterthought, it's built in from the ground up. Everything is safety first. The default is always off. It's privacy first, so no personal biodata is stored unless you explicitly say so. And accessibility for everyone, neurodiversity, mobility, vision, it's not just a feature to add later. It is a core requirement right from the very beginning. So when you boil it all down, this is so much more than just a new way to teach in a classroom. It's a repeatable process, a blueprint that really anyone can use to take something that's bugging them, a point of friction, and systematically turn it into something real and testable. And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started, with a simple question. Because that's how this whole process kicks off, with curiosity. So I'll leave you with this. Thinking about your own life, your work, whatever it is you do, what's the question you would start with?